Welcome to Team All Blacks, a series of reflective interviews of some of the great names of New Zealand's rugby past. Today's interview is with Sir Brian Lochore, coach, the first man to lead the All Blacks into a Rugby World Cup campaign, and of course he was successful. Sir Brian, when did the kernel of coaching pop into your mind?
Well, I didn't actually ever anticipate coaching at all. It wasn't part of my life plan really. I coached my club side when I was still playing, so that when I finished, I could go back to the farm and not feel an obligation to my club to coach them. But that lasted about 2 or 3 years, and I ended up coaching the club side and enjoying it, and then went back to pasture again after that. And I did coach World 15 in South Africa for the Northern Transvaal Centenary, and that whet my appetite, but it didn't whet my appetite really for anything else, bar what I'd done really. It was, we had a lot of New Zealanders in the side and Frenchmen, and it was enjoyable, but quite hard work because there was 30 players and not all of them spoke English. So and twice on that tour, I don't know how many games we had, probably about 6 or 7. We put 30, put 2 teams out on the one day, so it was full on. But I've always enjoyed people. I've always enjoyed the psychological side of rugby. I think that helped me in my captaincy, knowing who to give a barrel to and who to put your arm around. So then I came back and nothing was happening, but and I had no ambitions at all at that point. But Wairarapa were playing poorly, and they weren't getting very many wins, and I thought, maybe I should help a little bit. I could help a little bit, but I got beaten at the ballot the first year, and so that was fine. It didn't worry me at all. But the next year they came, cap in hand, I suppose. Will you take Wairarapa or Wairarapa Bush? And so I said, if you're going to support me, that's okay, but I'm not doing it if there's only half of the union that want me to do it. So they assured me that they wanted me to do it, and so that's how it happened. So really I put my toe in the water and I've got drowned.
Yes.
So from that point on, I got on the gravy train. No, that's not right. There was no gravy involved. I got on the train, if you like, successful with Wairarapa Bush to a degree.
Well, you certainly knocked Southland out of the first division.
Yeah, we did. It was an amazing week, really, for our fellows. We had to play Taranaki in Masterton to win the North Island side of the division, and they had Murray and Trapelovich and Karen Crowley. They had a hell of a good team, and we beat them, and then had to play South Canterbury, I think, on the Tuesday, and then go down to Southland on Saturday. So these little Wairarapa fellows had never been in rugby at that level. It was like having 3 test matches in a week for them. It was quite remarkable that they ever beat Southland. They didn't play well in the first half with the wind. We were 3-0 up, I think, and it's real wind, and they camped in our 22 for most of the half until we broke out and scored at the other end.
Some Southlanders among us remember that day. Yeah.
So it was quite an achievement for a team that they were very fit and they had a big heart and they worked for one another.
And they played very well once they got into the first division.
Yes, they did. A couple of years after that, they were 4th. They were ahead of Wellington. In fact, our first game in first division was against Wellington, which we drew. So that certainly gave us a bit of a lift. Yeah. And
it helped you, of course, towards the national side.
Well, it didn't. Yeah. No. Whether it helped me or not, it happened. I got asked if I'd become a member of the selection panel, which I did for a couple of years, and had would have had the opportunity to take the All Blacks to South Africa in 1985.
Yeah.
But that was cancelled. That was a hell of a time, really.
I was going to say, what were those days like when the
terrible.
law comes into it more than the game itself?
No, it was terrible actually. The whole business, like, you know, you had security guards, people abusing the players, and it really it went right on till the World Cup in '87. In the early part of the World Cup, it was still a problem. We weren't a united team. We were a united team, but the people in New Zealand weren't united behind us.
Uh-huh.
Like early in that tournament, the guys would never wear an All Black jersey downtown in case they got recognised because someone would abuse them.
Even at that stage?
Oh yes, absolutely. At the early part of that tour, or the World Cup, we were still under pressure from a section of New Zealanders. But I can tell you, by the time we got to the final, they'd all gone. All those antis had disappeared, and the last week, the guys were wearing their identification, All Black identification downtown and feeling good about it. And that changed the whole attitude of the players. Instead of, sort of shrinking around, they lifted their heads, and we were never going to get beaten in that final.
Is that right?
No, as soon as we stayed at the Pounamu Hotel, and I thought I'd given quite a good team talk there. I needn't have bothered, because when we got out to get on the bus, there was about 1,000 people there, chanting and carrying on, and just wishing the guys well and things. And from that moment on, there was no way we were going to get beaten.
It must have been uplifting as a coach to see that level of excitement come through in the public.
Oh, absolutely, because, all the time I'd been coaching prior to that, it was terrible. I mean, we as I say, had security guards in the hotel. We were always getting abused at training by somebody, and it was horrible. It was horrible being a New Zealander, really. We're better out of the country than in it. And so being able to turn that around was very satisfying.
Yeah. Just before the World Cup, you also had that Tour de France, which of course has gone down in history as that particularly vicious second test. What are your memories of that?
Well, my memories are that the turnaround in the French team was just enormous. I think we were prepared to play pretty much a similar game to the first test, which we won, I think, 12-3 from memory. But they just came out, like men possessed. Blew us off the park up front, and that was the best thing that actually happened to us going into the World Cup, because all of a sudden we couldn't guarantee that we could handle France or Australia, who had given us a tonguing as well, up front.
Yep.
And so we, I can remember vividly, well, I had two great coaches with me, Wiley and Hart, and we all agreed that, again, we had to revert to using our forwards with the ball in hand rather than plugging away trying to beat them up front, and that was what we played during that tournament.
Yeah.
And rightly so. I mean, that was. I remember asking the guys, "Are you prepared to go to the wing for the ruck?" And they all nodded. I said, "Okay, that's what we're going to do. That's where we're going to look for the weakest parts in the opposition."
Preparing for a World Cup was something completely new compared to, say, preparing for a tour. What was the key element that you thought about beforehand? Because it was something you'd never done before.
Well, it was all very new, but I was pretty aware, and so was Alec and John, that it was going to be difficult touring in your own country with so many. Everywhere we went, you're either in somebody's hometown, or there was plenty of people that knew the guys, and they weren't hammering them, but you could never get away. And we coped with it damn well, actually. The guys were brilliant. They were self-motivated. Like, we just gave them a plan to get themselves fit, and they did that. They arrived at the start of the World Cup as fit as they could ever be, and they'd done it themselves, which always important, isn't it?
Yes.
We hadn't pushed them around. If they weren't fit enough, we didn't select them. Simple as that. But we had a team of very fit players. And if you remember, going into the final, every player was available for selection, so that we had no injuries at all.
Was Andy Dalton recovered by that time?
Yes, he was.
He was. Yeah.
Yes, he was. He could have played, but clearly it was a decision. We decided to stay with what we had.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we had to change things. We changed things midstream a few times. Like we weren't scheduled to go to Hawke's Bay, but we chose to go up there on our way to Auckland. We had a spare day rather than be in the big city. We went to the country. It was great. It was, it gave the boys a change of scenery, and a lot of people got to see us, and they were excited. We, of course, went to Piranawa for a night. I wish it had been 2 nights, but it was very funny. I thought that we could handle 2 nights there, because I knew the first night they were just not, a lot of them wouldn't get up in the morning very early, and they'd miss out on most of the things that could have been done in the countryside. But 1 or 2 of the city boys go, "Oh, billeting, terrible billeting." I knew who they were billeted with, and they were going to be fine. I mean, lovely families, great houses, going to be looked after magnificently. I came home for the day and had a look around the farm, and went back to Piranawa to catch the bus that evening. The same guys who were going, "Billeting, can we stay another night?" I said, "Don't you talk to me about that, my friend." Yeah, so it was just an opportunity for them to I don't know, just be able to relax away from the maddening crowds, and it was at a time of the tour that was, a bit of pressure on, and we had another 10 days to go to the end, and it was timely, very timely. Yeah. And we were able to shoot for gold.
And of course you got the gold. And New Zealand rugby basically hasn't looked back.
No, it's been pretty good since then. Yeah, I think that's true. It was a good tournament. But I think we were better prepared than most of the teams. The English went, where did they go? Somewhere, and got sunburnt, and so yeah. I think the major thing was, as I said before, the motivation was self-motivation. Like we gave them a plan, a fitness plan, and they had to do it. And if they didn't turn up and they weren't fit enough, they didn't get in. Yeah. Simple as that.
You had some great players who came through in that tournament as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's an important aspect of.
But they were playing at the best of their form.
Yes.
The best they could play, and that just about goes for the whole lot. I don't think anyone let us down on that tour. I felt sorry for some of them who didn't get game time, but that was the way it was then. And but nobody let us down. Yeah.
So very, very satisfying. And of course, you decided at that stage that was it.
I'd always, in the back of my mind, and actually I told the chairman that during the World Cup, maybe even before the World Cup actually, that this is the end of my reign, that 3 years was enough, and I was retiring.
But it wasn't quite the end. You've still maintained, and of course you've now got the position of patron of the New Zealand Rugby. But I mean, you've been through the mill with other teams and other tournaments.
Oh yeah, I have. I went to South Africa as a campaign manager. Enjoyed that. Enjoyed working with Pinetree and Laurie, and we should have won that. That was just a travesty, really. Nobody will know how crook those guys were. Yeah. Nobody would know.
You were a crook yourself, I believe.
On the Saturday I was, but I was able to carry the can on the Friday when everyone else in management was down. So I don't know, it's just probably one of those things that you're able to work through that day, and then the next day I copped it. But no, what those guys did under the pressure of a final at that altitude, and feeling like they was quite remarkable. If you'd asked me what the score would have been before the game, I would have said 30-0 to South Africa. Yeah, so that's how I assessed them.
Yeah, and it was, of course, it was a marvellous rugby occasion.
Yeah, it was, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you're always disappointed when you can't play to your capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were involved again in 2007, is it?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. That was just about as
dramatic,
really.
It was a bit shorter.
Yeah, we didn't get to the final, unfortunately. Yeah, that was a dramatic day, I'd have to say, as well. And we were pretty disappointed after that. Yeah.
In terms of where rugby's at now, how do you see the game after looking back through your career and then looking into the future?
Oh, there's a lot of things that are really good about the game, but there's a few things that really, are untidy. I think the line out now is brilliant. There's a lot of artistry in the lifting and
the timing.
Getting the timing right and all that sort of thing. The two areas that really upset me are the scrums. It's like having smoke every time they call for a scrum. And, it takes them about 5 minutes to get there, and one of the little props will go down on the ground with a sore ankle, and they bring out the water, and then you have two collapsed scrums before you have a real dinkum one. It is very frustrating, time wasting, and annoying. I don't think they've got the ruck and maul quite right yet, but it is getting better. There's too many uncertainties there. You can do the same thing, twice, and the third time you do the same thing, you get penalised. So, it's not quite right, but it's better than it was. But I think the thing that has changed is the defence, where everyone's going to try and stop the ball being, and they're going into the chest region. That's fine, but for me, I don't believe you should have the arm higher than like the tackle should be under the arm, and then we won't have the problems that we're having with the high tackles.
Yeah. And
it'd be safer as well, and much easier for the referee to referee. But defensive patterns changed completely. You've got forwards, having to mark backs, and they do a pretty good job. Yeah, I think they do a very good job most of the time. But that's because the forwards don't have to go to the breakdown anymore.
Yeah.
So you have this picket fence. They're not 5 yards apart, they're 3 yards apart. So it is hard to get through, and that is a bit frustrating. If you've got more people at the breakdown than the opposition, you should have some advantages, and that's not happening now.
Yeah. And did you ever think you'd see the rugby at the Olympics, even if it's sevens?
No, I probably didn't. I wasn't a supporter of it anyway. I don't think team sports are part of the Olympics. I'm a bit of a traditionalist in that respect, but yeah. I think it's fine that it's there. I think Seven's done a marvellous job in promoting rugby around the world. In some of these countries like Portugal and Spain and many of the island countries, it's been fantastic. I think, I really support Sevens for that reason. I prefer 15-a-side games, but it has promoted the game worldwide, and I suppose, yeah, fair enough.